to Meenakshi Law Associates. This show is specially designed to keep you up to date with the intricacies of the Indian legal system and to show you what a competent legal consultant can do for you. While we proceed, we want you to like, comment and most importantly subscribe our channel. So let's discuss the aspects of Section 138 of Negotiable Instruments Act 1881.
Today, we are going to discuss the legal aspects of Section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. Section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act deals with three major instruments: bills of exchange, promissory notes, and checks. Across India, there are approximately 18 lakh cases lodged in the courts every year, and more than 40,000 cases are pending in the High Courts under Section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. It is well settled law that bearer promissory notes are illegal. Although technically under the definition of promissory note as given in this Act, it is possible to make a promissory note in favor of the bearer of the note. The provisions of the Negotiable Instruments Act were required to be read as subject to Section 21 of the Indian Paper Currency Act 1871, which is followed by several paper currency acts, the last one being the Indian Paper Currency Act 1923, which was repealed by the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. Section 31 whereof has subsequently incorporated the provisions of Section 21 of the Indian Paper Currency Act 1871 with slight modifications as follows. Issue of demand bills and notes. No person in India other than the bank or as expressly authorized by this Act, the central government shall draw, accept, make or issue any bill of exchange, hundi, promissory note or the engagement for the payment of money payable to bearer on demand, or borrow, owe or take up any sum or sums of money on the bills, hundis or notes payable to bearer on demand of any such person, provided that checks or drafts including hundis payable to bearer on demand or otherwise may be drawn on a person's account with a banker, shop or agent. Notwithstanding anything contained in the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881, no person in India other than the bank or as expressly authorized by this Act, the central government shall make or issue any promissory note expressed to be payable to the bearer of the instrument. The obvious object of the above statutory provision is to prohibit a private person from making a promissory note which is payable to bearer of the note, since such types of negotiable instruments will rival in their circulation and authenticity with the paper currency notes which are issued by and which should legitimately remain the monopoly of the Reserve Bank of India and the central government. The following citation is preferred: AIR 1976, Madhya Pradesh 144-147, 1976 MPLJ 238. For a hesitating confirmation of this view, see Kochitresia vs. Devdas, AIR 1988, Kerala 282, 1987, 1 Kerala LT 645. But for a contrary view, see Arakil Kurupattu Hami Haji vs. Appukutti, AIR 1969, Kerala 189, 1968, Kerala LT 896. The nature and scope of the promissory note, bond, bills of exchange and other instruments. A promissory note constitutes, along with a bill of exchange, an important variety of negotiable instruments as defined in Section 13 of the Act. As an instrument containing a promise to pay money, the promissory note has the closest rival in the form of a bond, which however is to be materially distinguished from a promissory note in the sense that the former cannot be a negotiable instrument, though the latter is in an overwhelming majority of cases, though not invariably, a negotiable instrument, though the latter is in an overwhelming majority of cases, though not invariably a negotiable instrument. See Note 2. Moreover, a bond is statutorily required to be attested, whereas a promissory note is not required to be attested. Though if it is actually attested, such attestation may be considered merely as a superfluous feature of the document, which may not detract the instrument from its validity as a promissory note. See Note 3. Many other documents which could properly be called as receipts, acknowledgements or deposits may in formal resemble a promissory note but differ from the latter inter alia from one major standpoint, namely, the former variety of documents does not contain a promise to pay, whereas an unconditional promise to pay constitutes an integral and an inescapable feature of a promissory note. Though coming very close in its form to an agreement or a contract, see Note 4, a promissory note is also to be distinguished from an agreement or a contract. Firstly, because whereas a liability arising out of a promissory note is unconditional, the liability arising out of a contract is subject to all other conditions and stipulations contained in the contract. Secondly, whereas the enforceability of a contract depends upon the proof of the consideration thereof, the enforceability of a liability under a promissory note is not hooked upon the proof of its consideration, such consideration being presumed as a part and parcel of such negotiable instrument. See Note 5. From a practical angle, a promissory note is also to be distinguished from an ordinary contract in view of the relative sanctity with which the liability arising out of the former is honored by the mercantile community in general. A promissory note may, at the outset, be also distinguished from its nearest and most formidable competitor in the range of negotiable instruments, namely a bill of exchange. A broad distinction between the two may thus be epitomized. In a promissory note, there are two parties, that is, the maker and the payee of the note, whereas in a bill of exchange, there are three parties, that is, the drawer, the drawee, and the payee. The liability of the maker of the promissory note is primary and absolute, whereas the liability of the drawer of a bill of exchange is secondary and comparable to that of a surety. See Note 6. However, a detailed discussion about the distinction between a promissory note on the one hand and other types of documents on the others is sought to be made in the later part of this work. Section 4, Note 1. Section 13 of the Act includes within the definition of a negotiable instrument only three types of instruments, namely a promissory note, bill of exchange, or check, payable either to or order to bearer. However, as per Section 1, the provisions of the Act do not affect any local usages relating to any instrument in an Oriental language. Thus, the validity of many other instruments such as hundis, etc., would be governed by the local usage of the mercantile community. Section 4, Note 2. For the definition of bond, see Section 5 of the Stamp Act 1899. The preliminary features of a bond which distinguish a bond from a promissory note are, inter alia, that a bond is required to be attested and that is not made payable to order or bearer. For a detailed discussion about the distinction between a bond and a promissory note, see the full bench decision of the MP High Court in Phanit Singh versus Mandandas, AIR 1976, Madhya Pradesh 144, 14, 145, 1976, MPLJ 238, FB. Section 4, Note 3. See Misrimal versus Balwant Singh, 1964, Rajasthan LW 169. A promissory note does not lose its character as a negotiable instrument merely because it is attested, and the presumption that any alteration appearing on the face of a negotiable instrument was made subsequent to the issue of the instrument is also available in the case of a promissory note which is attested. For the purpose of such presumption in case alteration, see Heman versus Dickinson, 1828, 5 DING 183, Ramasamy versus Bhavani, 1866 to 1868, 3 Madras HCR 947, Pillai versus Konar, AIR 1935, Rangoon 131, 159 IC 70, Narayan Prasad versus Ghanshamla, AIR 1961, Madhya Pradesh 6264, 1961, MPLJ 259. However, for a bold decision to the effect that an instrument, though stated in Hindi as a pronote, is to be treated as a bond if it is attested. See San Singh versus Madandas, AIR 1976, Madhya Pradesh 144-147, 1976, MPLJ 238, FB. Section 4, Note 5. For the presumption of consideration, see Section 118A of the Act. It may be noted here that from amongst illustrations A and B to the present section, which are considered to be examples of valid promissory notes, illustration A contains no reference to consideration, whereas illustration B makes a specific reference to the consideration which is reserved. Section 4, Note 6. See Section 30 and 32 of the Act. See also Walibai Suleiman versus Jagivan, AIR 1936, Nagpur 260-262, 167 IC 907. However, the real character of an instrument is to be determined by looking to the provisions of the document itself. Where a document had the words Handi and accepted inscribed thereon, it was held by the full bench of the Calcutta High Court that the document was not a bill of exchange but a promissory note. Harsukdas versus Dhirendranath, AIR 1941, Calcutta 498-500, 45 Calcutta WN 609 FB. For a discussion about the liability of a surety when he has signed a joint promissory note along with the principal debtor in favor of a bank, C. Mantosh Kumar Chatterjee versus Central Calcutta Bank Limited, 1953, 23 COMCA 491 Calcutta. For a distinction between a surety and a co-obligant, see the decision of the Supreme Court in Chasanatha Kurulayar versus Central Bank of India Limited, AIR 1965, SC 1856, 1965, 35, COM CAS 610. Section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 is an offence which can be punished with imprisonment which may extend up to a term of 2 years, or with a fine which may extend up to twice the amount of the cheque, or with both.
So friends, now you know the aspects of Section 138 of Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. Feel free to ask us any question, post your comments, share the video so that we can make more for you. Don't forget to subscribe and stay updated. Thank you for watching our show. This is Chandni Bhatija signing off.